Hey, this is Michael Moul. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Google Drive and how I used it last year. I know there are lots of different systems and solutions for solving the problems that I solved with this system. A main one is Doctopus, which is a little more complicated than what I'm going to show you, but also offers a few more features. Of course, you should feel free to experiment with what you would like to experiment with. Here's kind of a picture of the way things worked in my classroom last year. So this box here obviously symbols my Google Drive. And within my Google Drive, I set up a WorldLit, I called it an e-binder, which I thought was clever. And I took every file that I wanted my students to have access to and I put it inside of that WorldLit e-binder. And then I shared that WorldLit e-binder with each one of my students. So there was a copy of it in each one of my students' Google Drives. So that whenever I made a change or added anything to this folder, it would automatically get pushed out to each one of my students' Google Drives. And all I needed to do was click Save in Microsoft Word or make a change in Google Docs, and very quickly it would just be pushed out straight to my students, and I wouldn't have to update anything or re-upload anything. It was all very simple. I asked my students to work in roughly the same way, except backwards. They created a personal folder in their Google Drives, which they then shared with me. So that as soon as they added anything to these folders, and I asked them to put everything in there, reading journals, essays, everything went into their personal folders, that was then automatically shared with me. As soon as they put it in, it would get pushed out to me, and I would get to see what they were working on and see what progress they were making and make comments and do whatever I wanted. I made sure that they gave me both view and edit access to their folders so that I could make comments on them, and I made sure that I only gave them view access so that they couldn't edit the documents that I was sharing with them. There's no reason for a student to be able to edit the course calendar or the course information sheet or anything else like that. So again, the way the system worked was I created one folder and I shared it with roughly 80 different world literature students, and roughly 80 world literature students each created a folder and shared each of those folders back with me. And I had a folder on my Google Drive that I kept all those folders inside so everything stayed organized. Let me talk a little bit about how the details work. So here we are in my Google Drive, and I want to create the WorldLit e-binder. So I need to create a folder in order for me to do so. I'll click on New, and then Folder, and then create the WorldLit e-binder, and then create it. So now this folder exists. It's got nothing in it, and it's not shared with anybody, but the folder exists. First thing I'll do is share it with people who are in my class, and I'll do that by right-clicking and then clicking on Share. At this point, I can type in all of my students' email addresses, which is long, or actually there's a very quick and simple way to import all of your students' email addresses and put them in here, and there's a separate tutorial on how to do that, so you can check that elsewhere on the website. For right now, since I don't have my students' email addresses, I'm going to just type in Gordon, who has volunteered to be the fake student in this class. So there's Gordon's email address. I'm going to give him access to the WorldLit e-binder, and I'm going to make sure that he can't edit it, but instead can view the WorldLit e-binder. I don't want him to be able to edit. That's a very important check to make sure that you do. This checkbox here tells Google to send him an email automatically saying that I shared it with him. That's a good idea for your students. I'm going to uncheck that box for right now because Gordon doesn't need to know that he's in this demonstration. And there's Gordon with his view access, and so I am done. So now I've created this folder, I have shared it with the appropriate people, and I'm ready to start modifying it. So I'll double click on it, and I'll start creating some new folders to keep everything organized inside. I'll create one called Course Intro Docs, which is things like course information sheets, Turnitin.com, instructions, things like that. And I'll create another one right now for our first unit of the year, which is going to be Kite Runner. If I have created my course information sheet online, it's very simple for me to move it over to the Course Intro Docs folder. So I can find that through my Google Drive, and it's going to be here under Los Altos High School Docs. It's going to be here under, under WorldLit. There's WorldLit. There's Course Intro. And I actually haven't created my course information sheet yet. So instead, I will just pick a different folder that I've got. So I'll put in something on MLA format, which they're going to need to have all year. So I'm going to click on this, and this is the tricky part. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and hit the letter Z key. Again, that's Shift Z. and it brings up the Add To dialog box, which allows me to keep it where it is in the folder that I know I got it nicely organized in, and also add it to my WorldLit eBinder. It's going to be in 2 places at once, and any changes I make to it in any of those folders will automatically get pushed out to all the rest of them, including to my students. So I've got my WorldLit eBinder here, and I want to put it under course intro docs, and there it is. So I'm just going to add it there. And now this MLA format document that I created years ago will be available to all my students through the WorldLit eBinder. And here it is in the WorldLit eBinder. Right there, which is very handy. I'm also going to ask my students to set up their folders in exactly the same way. They're going to click on New and create a folder. They're going to share their folders with me, and I'm going to get a whole bunch of students' folders back. So I want to make sure that I've got a way to organize the other side of it. I want to make sure that once they've created their folders, I've got a way to keep things organized over here. Once students share a folder with me, it's going to show up in Google Docs or Google Drive under Incoming. And Gordon has already shared his folder with me. He's named it Jack, Gordon-WorldLit 2. His first name allows me to make sure that all of my students' folders are alphabetized by student name. And then the fact that he's added WorldLit 2 there means that he's going to be able to tell what folder that is, because within his own Google Drive, naming a folder Jack, Gordon isn't really going to separate it out from any other folders that he's got. So he's got this folder here that is now shared with me. It's not particularly convenient, though, to keep it under Incoming, because as more people share things with you, it will fall lower and lower on the screen. So I'd like to put it somewhere that's a little bit more convenient. So in my Google Drive, here right next to WorldLit eBinder, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it WorldLit Students 2014-15. If I go back to Incoming, I can take Gordon's folder, I can right-click on it, and I can add it to my own drive by clicking Add to my drive. It's going to ask me where I want it, and I want it there under 2014-15, and I want it in WorldLit Students 2014-15. I'm going to move it there. And that works really nicely. So now under my drive, back where I was under this school year, I've got Gordon's folder. And as more students start sharing folders with me, I'll be able to collect all of their folders right there under this folder here called WorldLit Students 2014-2015. And that's kind of the way this setup works. You create a folder and share it with them. They create folders and share them with you. There are a couple of cool things that you can do with this. The first is that if I want to take a document that a student has been working on, say it's a rough draft of the Kite Runner essay, I have access to all of their rough drafts through their folders. So if I double-click on Gordon, if Gordon has done his homework, here under his Kite Runner folder, which he's created and he's modified and he's updated, the Kite Runner essay, he looks like he started and has started working on it. And there I have access to his Kite Runner essay right there. Let's say that I want everybody in the class to be able to look at Gordon's Kite Runner essay. I want to do a class edit, and I want to put this essay that he shared with me on every single student's screen. And I can do that simply by adding it to my WorldLit eBinder. If I, again, clicked on Shift-Z, it's going to ask me if I want to add it to anywhere else. And I do. I want to add it to 2014 WorldLit eBinder Kite Runner. So as soon as I add that document there, it's going to exist in Gordon Jack's personal folder, which is shared with both him and me, and it's also going to exist in the WorldLit eBinder that I've shared with everybody else in the class, which means that now everybody else can use the WorldLit eBinder to gain view access to Gordon's essay. And there it is right there. So everybody has access to this. Nobody else can edit it because they only have view access to the folder, but everybody else can look at it and make comments on it and make suggestions for Gordon in a class activity. I don't want everybody to be able to keep access to Gordon's essay, so as soon as I'm done with that, I can click on the I button up here, which will allow me to view the details of this folder, of this file. And here under Details, it tells me where the file is located. It's located under Gordon's Kite Runner folder, and it's located under my Kite Runner folder. So I'm going to actually, I should probably name these in a way that I can tell the difference between them. So I'll have to keep that in mind. But I'm pretty sure that this is the one I want to remove it from. So I'm going to remove it from there. And I guessed right. So now I've taken it out of that folder, and now no one else can see it besides Gordon and myself. It's a really handy way to do a class edit without having to make a whole bunch of photocopies or using your document camera. Another really handy thing to be able to do is to create a handout that you distribute to everyone. So if I go to my drive and I go back into the world at eBinder, I can get rid of the information page. Let's say I want to create a handout, and I want people to be able to work on this handout. So I'm going to go New, and I'm going to create a Google Doc this time. And it's warning me that it's creating the Google Doc in a shared folder. It's reminding me that all my students will have access to this, which is a good thing. So I'll call this class handout. I'd probably want to come up with something more specific if I were actually doing this. And let's just throw in, I'm just going to cut and paste in a handout that I prepared for last year. A couple of pieces of advice on the handout. I like to use text boxes, which are actually just tables. This is a table with, it's one cell by one cell. To tell students where they need to write. It's sort of, given that I have typed on the Google document and they have typed on the Google document, it can sometimes be difficult for them to tell where they're supposed to be typing and where I typed. So I use text boxes to differentiate what I wanted to say and what I want them to say. So there's lots of different boxes that they need to add into. So now they have access to this document. But if you think about it, there's a problem, because this document only exists in the world at eBinder, and I want each of them to have a copy of it. And I want each of them to take it out of the world at eBinder, where they can't write on it, and put it into their own personal folders. I'll show you how to do that, and then this tutorial will be finished. I'm going to click over to this window, which is Gordon Jack's Google Drive. So I'm no longer in my own Google Drive. I'm now in Gordon's Google Drive. And under Incoming, he will have the Worldlit eBinder. And I would suggest that he move it to his own drive, just like I moved his folder to my drive. I'm going to put that in his drive so that it won't fall too low on the screen after people share things with him. And he'll find that in you'll find the Worldlit eBinder now in his own drive. He can double click on it. He can open up Kite Runner, and he'll see the class handout here. But he won't be able to write on it until he makes this copy his own. I'm trying to type here, and it won't allow him to type anything because he only has view access to this, and it says view only up here. But he can fix that problem by clicking on the Move to Folder button. And he wants to click on Organize. He wants to take this out of the Worldlit eBinder and put it into Jack, Gordon Worldlit 2. Again, that's the personal folder that he has shared with me, the one that only he can access and I can access. And he wants to put it in Kite Runner. So what he needs to do is hold down the Command key or the Control key and then click on this. And when he does that, it's going to leave it where it was, but it's going to add it to the Kite Runner, to his own Kite Runner folder as well. So as soon as I click Move, it's going to exist in both places, in his own through his own folder, and in my Worldlit eBinder. So if he goes back to his own drive, he should see it there. Jack, Gordon, Kite Runner, and there's the class handout. And because he now owns this, he can type all over it. And that's a really good way to get students to be able to take information out of your folder and put it in their own. As soon as they've done that, you'll be able to click through all their folders and see all of the different handouts that you've distributed to them that they've made copies of. If you've got any questions, make sure that you contact Gordon, Jack, or Michael Moul. And I wish you good luck with the start of the year and with Google Drive. Thanks, everybody.